Hey everyone, and welcome to After Hours here at Linda's Electric Quilters. I am super on. It's kind of weird being on set alone, but it'll be okay. Diana is actually up in the New England states this week enjoying a much needed and well-deserved. So it's just me tonight, but it's going to be all right. We will get through this together. It's just you and I, and we are going to be looking at doing some overall edge-to-edge quilting on projects using full line stencils, and we're going to be quilting it on our sewing machines. We're going to see how that works out because y'all know I'm a long arm guy, but it's okay. We're going to move down to the sewing machine and we're going to work through it together because these stencils are amazing. You are absolutely going to love them. But before I get started, make sure you subscribe to our channel, so it's going to be right down at that bottom right hand corner. After you click on that subscribe button, make sure you click on the little bell that shows up so you can get notified whenever we post new videos or whenever we go live here at After Hours. So let's go overhead and let's take a look at what we are going to be working on today. So I've got a quilt top here. This is one of the first quilt tops that Diana ever pieced, and so we're going to be using it since she's out of town. And I've got the quilt top here. We're using Hobbs fusible batting. If you are doing sit-down quilting on your sewing machine, I definitely recommend having some type of fusible batting or a basting spray. It's a little easier than safety pins everywhere, but this fusible batting is great to use. It's an 80-20 blend, and it has a fusing mechanism on it that is water soluble. So after you wash it, the batting lofts up to the way it needs to be. But I can use an iron. Let me move my mat underneath here real quick. I can take my iron with that fusible batting, and I can just press and hold with my iron, no steam, on this quilt with the batting and the backing attached 10 to 15 seconds, and then move around the quilt as I go. And I'm just going to press. Get something where you have like a little bit of a wrinkle or something. You can still pull up the quilt and shift it, push it back down, come again with your iron, and press and hold for about 10 to 15 seconds, sometimes a little bit longer depending on the fabric that you're using. And to get a more secure hold on this, be careful when you get the iron right next to the batting line, since it does have that adhesive on that. You don't want to get that on your iron, so be kind of careful with that. But you're just going to press around, and then to get an extra lock on, once you're done with the top, you can flip it completely over, and then you can press right down on your backing as well. Same amount of time, 10 to 15 seconds, give or take, but that just really helps you keep this as one stable piece. And then when you're sitting down your sewing machine, go at it, and then when you wash the quilt, that water-soluble adhesive will disappear and the batting will loft up to its full potential. We are going to be looking at the full line stencils, the edge-to-edge side of things that they have, and here's just a few that we carry. They're about $14. They are reusable, and they can be washed, and I'll show you how I get rid of the chalk once I'm done with it. This is a bamboo swirls one. You've got a nice stipple meander here, which is really, really cool. You've got a Baptist fan. We all love a good Baptist fan. That's a nice overall edge-to-edge design that you could work with. This one swirls and curls. This has a little bit of backtracking onto it, but it's a very elegant design here. This is Maple Breezes. This has got some nice maple leaves on there. That's really, really cool for fall quilts. And then last but not least, which is the one we're going to be using this evening, is called Wild Swirls. It's got a lot of movement in this one. Works really well with these batiks that I've got on the quilt. I chose this design because if you'll look at some points in the fabric, there's some a little here at the top. It kind of mimics what's going on in the batik here, this design. So I thought we could go with that and give it a nice look on that. All the information on these are down in the description below, so you can check it out on our website and you can purchase some for yourself. We will be using the pounce powder. You see us use that a lot throughout After Hours, but we're going to be working with the pounce powder tonight, and it comes in white, pink, and blue. Since there is so much white and blue in this quilt, I will be using the pink chalk tonight, and this is a washout chalk. So once you're done with it, make sure you don't iron or anything like that. You can wash it off in the washing machine, or you can spritz it with water. I also like to go in with a piece of batting once I'm done and just pick up all the extra chalk just by brushing right on top of that. So these full line stencils, what sets them apart from others is you've got that nice, easy, reusable design, since it is a reusable piece. But the really cool part on here, I don't know if you can see, but they have little plus signs built onto these stencils. So as you pounce through this, you're matching up the design as it goes, because this is the starting point, this would be the ending point, or vice versa, however you want to look at it. And you can work your way through this design and you just match them up as you go. But the cool part about it is when you want to link them up to make sure you have the right spacing, these plus signs right here, like for instance, let's pounce this one down real quick. Let me move the mat from underneath here. I'm going to come in with my pink chalk, give it a little bit of a hit here. And what I like to do with these is get a nice hand on this, not pushing too hard, but it's a nice hand. And then we're just going to press this chalk down. Be generous with it, so it'll definitely go through that. If you have to do a couple of hits, that's all right. You want to be generous with that. Make sure you grab that plus sign too when you're doing it, and you'll see why in a second. Just going to pounce that down, work all the way through. As you get to the point where you've covered up the top section, just shift your hand down while holding the pounce pad onto it. That way it keeps it steady. Shift your hand down, and then do the same process. It takes a little bit of extra chalk on these to get through because you want to see that design really well when you get down to that sewing machine. So it takes, like I said, it takes a little bit of time. It's going to be all right. Just take that extra few minutes, few seconds actually, to get this down to make it look and see the way that you actually want it to see, because you want to definitely see that on the quilt when you're working through there. Pounce this all the way down. Get a little bit more down here at the edge here. Having a hard time seeing the pink. There we go. So once I've got that, I'm just going to lift up the stencil, set it to the side. I've got the design pounced down on top of the quilt now. But you see, we get those plus signs right there. And what I like to do is I'll come in with my chalk pencil. And with that chalk pencil, that's going to allow me to put an extra mark on over those plus signs, because that powder tends to jump off a little bit sometimes when you work through it all the way. So I would come through with my chalk pencil and mark that plus sign again here, just like that, after this row's done. So once we complete that whole row of stitching and we come back to pounce on the second row, you can match those plus signs up to each other from the previous row, just like that. Pounce, pounce, and then you can pounce it again, and that gives you the exact amount of spacing that you need between the rows as you work all the way down. So it's really cool about those. You can just work all the way down the quilt. You can shift it however you want, and they are, like I said, reusable and washable. If you're trying to get the chalk off of it, let me move this out of the way so we don't pounce right on top of it. Let's bring up the pad. Be all right. Here we go. Right there. If you're trying to get the chalk off of it easily, grab a piece of batting. And it wipes right off with batting. It's really nice. Take care of that. Flip it over the side, and you can clean that up really easily. And that's what we've got. Oh, it looks so cute. I love this design. Really works well with these fabrics. So what we're going to do is I want to take this over to the machine, and we're going to start stitching our first path on the sewing machine. The way that I've done these and the way that I find it easiest to be done is to stitch one repeat at a time and then come back and pounce, because eventually as you get down, that chalk will disappear because you're moving the quilt around so much and it's dragging over you. So work with one repeat at a time. That's the easiest way, but whatever way works for you is how I would like you to do it. Whatever way works for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to head over to the sewing machine right now, and let's take a look at what we can do. All right, so we're over here at the ending area of where this quilt would be. So the thing about edge to edge that you really want to look at is when you're doing this edge to edge design, have your starting and stopping points in the binding area. So when you put on that binding, the recipient of this quilt, which kind of gives the eye a little bit of interest when they're looking around. So I've got my foot down. I'm going to drop my needle and pull up my threads. That's kind of the way from seeing it from the world that I come from. So lost my thread there. Sometimes that happens. That's all right. There it is. And pull that. I'm going to do a couple of tie-off stitches here just to lock it down. Remember, this is in your binding area, so the customer or the person you're giving this as a gift to won't ever see that. Drop that over to the side. We've got this machine going about medium speed right now, and we're just going to start it up, and we're going to start following this beautiful design. So we're going to start this, and we're just going to come here. Now, the thing about the pounce is it does start to bounce off, so remember that, because it's a pounce powder. It's not on there for forever. So you want to be really careful, and it's just, the best thing about it also is that you don't have to follow directly on the design. You are just using it as a reference guide to work around this quilt. Just pushing around this. And one thing I could tell you about sitting down and doing this on a domestic machine is just because the machine sounds like it's going faster does not mean you need to be moving the machine a whole lot faster. Just go with the natural flow and you'll get a nice, even, consistent stitch length when you do that. Oh, this is so much fun as I work around this here. Like I said, I'm not following directly on this design. I'm just kind of going with the flow here. Putting my own little Corey spin on it, which also gives interest to the design. As we work around this. And if you get uncomfortable, pause the machine or lift your foot up off of your pedal, however you're doing it, and then you can start it back up. Just to get a better handle on where you want things to be. And you're just working all the way through this one, moving it around. Like I said, don't stay directly on the design. You'll drive yourself crazy trying to do that. Use it as a guide to get a nice, pretty look here. And I am using an affinity thread. It's by the Habendash company. It's called Mediterranean. I liked the colors on this thread. They worked really well with the batiks. And since we are doing batiks, having a nice shiny thread also added a little bit of interest to the fabrics. Working around this way. I'm getting a little uncomfortable with my hands, so I'm going to pause the machine, get a better grip, and then go back to it. And we're just pushing this around. Oh my gosh, this is so much fun. I could get used to this. Working around this, come in with this nice tight swirl. Just go a tad bit slower. My stitches are getting a little elongated. Following these curves, really nice, just making sure we're taking it nice and easy around this. And this is something that you don't get discouraged if it doesn't look the way you absolutely want it to right out of the gate, because this is something that takes a little bit of time and practice. Even, you know, I'm gonna work through this a little bit more, but as you get through this and as you practice and you learn how these designs work and you learn how to move the fabric around, you can get a nice, beautiful edge to edge out of it. So I'm here. I'm going to tie off my threads. This is a start and stop. You can manually tie and bury, or you can just tie it off like this, completely up to you, because you're going to start back at that point again once you pounce the new repeat to continue on. But let's cut our threads and let's go back to the set and see what it looks like. So I'll take this with me and let's head over there. Alrighty, so we're back over here on the table, and after your first repeat, you're going to have a lot of powder, a lot of chalk dust everywhere from that pounce powder coming off as you're stitching over it. So what I recommend doing, you might have some batting fibers as well. I love a good Aunt Pam's quilt sponge, so I'm going to take my sponge, and what I can do is I can just brush all that excess material, all that excess batting fibers that come up that I've pulled through. That extra chalk dust comes off nice and easy. Remember, a lot of this will come off in the wash as well because it's a washout chalk. But you can kind of help the process speed along just by getting in there and clearing that out. Once you do one side, you can flip it over just to have a nice fresh edge to work with. And then we can take a look at the design that we have so far. So let's switch cameras. Let's come over here. And let's take a look. There we go. At what we've done so far. Just like that. So having that stencil along gives you this nice, beautiful look. Love the way this is coming out. This is going to look great overall. Good thread choice, good blender there to match with these fabrics here, these batiks, and the quilt top. I hope Diana's going to like it. It'll be a good surprise for her when she gets home. And then another thing I do want to show you is cleaning this stencil. So let's say we're done with this one for now. We want to set it to the side and move on. You want to get this excess powder off of there so it's not on everything else as you go store it somewhere. So come in with a piece of batting and just brush off the excess chalk on the top. Flip it over, you're going to have more. Brush again. Switch the sides of the batting so it'll absorb more. You can also take this to the sink and wash it out if you're completely done with it for the day. But having just that easy batting trick to get that off really changes that for you. So I hope you enjoyed today's video on how you are going to be using these really cool full line edge-to-edge stencils to do some super easy edge-to-edge quilting on your domestic quilting machine. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. We will be answering those as they come up. We get a notification, so we'll get back to you and answer those. Also, these stencils are available on our website, www.longarmsupplies.net, and along with the pounce powder, the sponge, fusible batting, everything that we looked at today. Thank you so much for joining me tonight on After Hours, and I'll see you next time. Bye.